My name is Eleanor Thompson. I turned 80 last summer. For most of my life, people saw me as the quiet, dependable grandmother, the one who baked pies, knitted blankets, and always had a $20 bill ready for the grandkids. But beneath that soft exterior was a woman who had built something far greater than anyone ever suspected. And on one hot August afternoon, at the annual family reunion, my own grandson decided to remind the entire clan exactly what he thought of me. It started innocently enough. The reunion was at my son Robert's big backyard in the suburbs, the house I helped pay for with the down payment 20 years ago. Tables groaning under potato salad, ribs, and my famous apple cobbler. Laughter, kids running around with water guns, music playing. I arrived early, as always, carrying 2 trays of desserts and a box of old photo albums I'd promised to share. My grandson, Ethan, 28 years old, handsome, successful in tech, married to a lovely girl named Sarah, greeted me with a quick hug. "Hey, Gran, glad you made it." His smile was polite, but his eyes darted away. I noticed. I always noticed. The afternoon unfolded like every other reunion. I sat in the shade, watching the great grandkids play, chatting with cousins I hadn't seen in years. Then came the speeches. Robert, my only son, stood up first. "To family," he toasted, "the people who stick together no matter what." Everyone cheered. Then Ethan took the microphone. He'd been drinking. Not much, but enough. He looked around, grinning like he was about to drop the punchline of the century. "Everyone, I want to make a special toast to Grandma Eleanor." The yard quieted. I smiled, expecting something sweet. Maybe thanks for the birthday checks, or the college funds I'd quietly paid, or the times I'd watched the kids when Sarah was working late. Instead, he said, "Grandma, you've been, around a long time, and honestly, lately, you've become kind of a burden. You call too much, you show up unannounced, you give advice nobody asked for. We love you, but maybe it's time to downsize. Get yourself into one of those senior places where people your age hang out. We need space. The house, our lives, it's getting crowded with all your stuff." He laughed like it was a joke. A few people chuckled nervously. My daughter-in-law Sarah looked down at her plate. My son Robert shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Then Ethan delivered the final blow. "So here's to Grandma finally realizing she's not the center of the universe anymore. To freedom for all of us." He raised his glass. Half the table clinked, the other half stared at me in awkward silence. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. My hands trembled on the armrests of the lawn chair. For a moment, the world narrowed to that laugh, my grandson's laugh, echoing across the yard like a slap. I didn't cry, not there. I simply stood up, slowly, with the dignity I'd earned over 8 decades. "Excuse me," I said quietly. "I think I'll head home now." No one stopped me. No one walked me to the car. Ethan even waved casually, as if he'd just told a mildly funny story. That night, alone in my small 2-bedroom house, the same one I'd lived in since 1968, the tears finally came. But with them came memories, sharp, vivid memories. When Robert was 5, his father died in a car accident. I was 28, widowed with no family nearby. I worked 2 jobs, daytime as a secretary, nights waitressing, to keep the house. I never complained. When Robert married Linda, I paid for half the wedding, $8,000 in 1985 money, every cent I'd saved. When Ethan was born, I became the on-call babysitter. I drove 40 minutes each way 3 times a week so Sarah could keep her career. I changed diapers, read stories, helped with homework. "You're a lifesaver, Mom," Robert used to say. When Ethan wanted to study computer science at a private university, tuition was $45,000 a year. Scholarships covered half. I quietly sold my mother's antique jewelry and covered the rest. Ethan never knew. He thought it was financial aid. When he started his tech company and needed seed money, I gave him $60,000 from a savings account I'd built over decades. "Just a loan," I told him. He never paid it back. Over the years, car down payments, medical bills when Sarah had cancer, thank God she recovered. Christmas bonuses disguised as gifts, emergency funds during layoffs. In total, over the last 30 years, I'd funneled nearly $1.2 million into this family, quietly, without fanfare. They thought I lived on Social Security and a tiny pension. They had no idea about the real source of my security. The next morning, I didn't call anyone. Instead, I opened the safe in my bedroom closet. Inside were documents I hadn't looked at in years: stock certificates, property deeds, investment statements. My late husband's life insurance had grown. My parents' farm in Montana had been sold in the 90s, proceeds invested wisely. Rental properties in 3 states, a brokerage account I'd never touched. Balance, $4.8 million. Liquid, untouched. They assumed I was scraping by. They were wrong. I called my lawyer, Mr. Callahan, the same man who'd handled my husband's estate. I need to make changes to my will, today. I revoked every bequest to Robert, Linda, Ethan, and Sarah. Instead, 40% to a foundation for widowed mothers and single working women, 30% to scholarships in Ethan's old high school, but only for students who write an essay on respecting elders, 20% to local animal shelters. Ethan was allergic to cats. I loved them. 10% to my church, with instructions for a bench in the Narden engraved in memory of Eleanor Thompson, who gave everything and asked for nothing. No trust fund for great-grandkids, no monthly checks, nothing. Then I canceled the automatic $1,500 monthly transfer to Robert's account for helping with bills. I froze the joint credit card they sometimes used in emergencies. Finally, I booked a one-way first-class ticket to Santorini, Greece. I'd always wanted to see the white houses and blue domes. I'd never gone because family needed me. No more. Before leaving, I wrote 3 letters, handwritten, delivered by courier the day I flew out. To Ethan. Dear Ethan, at the reunion, you called me a burden. You were right, but only because I allowed myself to be one. For 28 years, I carried this family. Now, I set it down. Your startup? The seed money came from me. Your house down payment? Me. Your education? Me. Effective immediately, all support ends. My will has been changed. You inherit nothing. I'm going to live the life I postponed for you. Don't call, don't visit, don't send the kids to guilt me. Goodbye, my once beloved grandson. Grandma Eleanor. To Robert, son, you stood silent while your son humiliated me. That silence was louder than any words. I gave you everything. Now, live without it. Your mother. To Sarah, Sarah, you married into this family knowing I was always there. Now you'll see what life is like without the invisible safety net. Take care of my great-grandkids. Tell them Grandma loves them, from afar. Eleanor. I landed in Santorini at sunrise. The sea sparkled like diamonds. I rented a small white villa overlooking the caldera. No phone calls, no emails, just me, the wind, and the quiet I'd earned. Months later, I heard through a distant cousin, Ethan's company hit a rough patch. Investors pulled out. Robert asked for help, only to learn the accounts were closed. Sarah went back to full-time work. The big house felt suddenly too big. They never apologized. They never reached out with love, only with need. And me? I wake up to sunrises over the Aegean. I paint watercolors. I adopt stray cats. I smile at strangers. I'm no longer a burden. I'm finally free. Closing narration over sunset footage. If you're watching this and you've ever felt invisible in your own family, remember, your worth isn't measured by what you give. It's measured by what you refuse to accept anymore. The end.